Title: Ghost Story: The Vengeful Spirits of Mother and Child. Author Tran Kinga. The soul of Mrs. Yen appeared along with inexplicable events after 6 years of silence, causing a great stir in the village, especially in Mr. Fu's family. Within just 1 week, their construction material company plummeted disastrously. Materials couldn't be sold, machinery inexplicably malfunctioned, and accidents befell the workers consecutively. Despite Mr. Fu's attempts to increase wages, other workers resigned one by one. Seeing that things were not right, Mr. Fu began to investigate to find the root of the problem. But where to start? With Mrs. Yen or with the 3 foreigners? Why hadn't Mrs. Yen's soul found peace after 6 years? Why did the 3 foreigners, dead for over a century, still linger? And what caused Mrs. Yen's death? Was it suicide or foul play by some unseen force? Everything was chaotic, leaving Mr. Fu bewildered and unsure of what to do first. My village, though poor, operated like one big family. Living together with love and solidarity, I too, as a member of the community, couldn't bear to see my fellow villagers living in fear. While Mr. Fu investigated for his family and company's survival, I embarked on my own quest for the peace of the village, which included my family. I had a close friend named Ngok, whose house was adjacent to mine and bordered the village's first river. Because her mother was in the same social circle as mine and Mrs. Yen, Ngok was deeply troubled by Mrs. Yen's death. Since she was also my best friend and had heard stories about Mr. Vinh, who was her cousin's grandfather, being skilled in exorcism, she agreed to accompany me to seek his help. The next day, I went to Ngok's house to discuss, and we decided to ask for Mr. Vinh's address. Mr. Kao, Vinh's house was more than 20 kilometers from our village. To reach it, we had to traverse a grove of white-stemmed trees. Although the path was only 50 meters long, it felt like a forest due to its dense and eerie atmosphere, making us shiver every time we passed through. Mr. Vinh's house stood isolated from the residential area. Its tiled roof had faded, and the lime-plastered walls showed signs of decay, with bricks peering through. The wooden door, decayed and partially closed, emitted the faint sound of woodworms gnawing. In front of Mr. Vinh's gate, wild thorny bushes grew densely, almost touching the ground on both sides of the entrance. Standing at the gate, Ngok called out, "Hello, Mr. Vinh. I'm Ngok, cousin of Long. I'm passing by today and thought to visit you on the way." Hearing Ngok's voice, Mr. Vinh stepped out from inside the house, walking gracefully and confidently. His demeanor belied the modesty of his dwelling. Upon seeing us, he smiled warmly. "Hello, you two. It's been a while since I've seen Ngok visit. Come inside, follow the path, and be careful not to step on my plants." As we entered, a pleasant fragrance wafted through the air. Seeing me standing still, Mr. Vinh chuckled. "Like the scent?" "Yes, sir. It's a very pleasant fragrance. It refreshes one's mind despite fatigue. What kind of trees do you grow that emit such a fragrance?" "This is the scent of incense. I had Thang Long's mother buy it for me. But why did Ngok suddenly bring you here today? Is there something going on?" Not keeping Mr. Vinh waiting, Ngok quickly replied, "Today, I happened to pass by and decided to visit you. Long is away for work and can't come to see you, so he occasionally asks me to visit and chat with you to keep you from feeling lonely. This is a gift Long bought for you, and he asked me to bring it to you. Also, What's wrong? If you need any help from me, just say it. I've seen it as soon as you stepped in. Speak up. If I can help, I will. I'm old, but I can still do something for the world." "Don't say that, sir. Long would feel sad hearing that. Besides, you're still young and healthy. Seeing you in such good health makes me happy. I'll call Long later to reassure him." "Your dad. You were stubborn as a child, and you're still the same now, aren't you? But what's the matter? Tell me." Seeing Mr. Vinh initiate the conversation, Ngoc found it easier to speak, pouring out her words like a disc playing when the play button is pressed. "Sir, there have been many strange occurrences in our village lately. Mrs. Yen, who lived near my house, passed away 6 years ago, but recently she's been appearing and causing accidents, including fatal ones. My family, living nearby, is also scared, so today I came to ask if you could help. If we let this continue, it won't be good. First there were those 3 foreigners, and now Mrs. Yen's matter. I'm just an ordinary person, but even I feel that there's a problem in this, so I'm asking for your help. You're knowledgeable about the spiritual world. Please help me. Help our village." After Ngoc finished explaining, Mr. Vinh's expression turned contemplative. He stood up, went inside, fetched 6 talismans, then calmly sat down. "Since Ngoc stepped in, I've seen it. Your house has a presence, but it's not an ordinary presence. I think it's related to what you two just told me. Now, take these 4 talismans back and have your family wear them. Both of you," referring to me, "should wear them too since you're the most affected. Wear them and leave, and never take them off, especially when you sleep." What did Mr. Vinh say? Is Ngoc's house haunted? Could it be that those sightings I had are impossible? Did he say your house is haunted? Yeah, but it hasn't caused any trouble yet, so let's stay calm. Anyway, I won't dwell on it. I'll find a way to handle this. Now you two go home. Don't ask any more questions, and don't tell anyone. Ngoc, leave your phone number with him, then get the village chief's number for him to call and clarify things. It's not the time for him to reveal himself yet, so he'll call when it's time. Now, go, and remember to watch your step at the gate and not to step on his plants." Without asking anything else, we stood up, bid him farewell, and left. But it was strange. Aren't those plants by the gate weeds? Why did Mr. Vinh warn us not to step on them? Hey, are you planning to leave or stay here forever? I was lost in thought and forgot that Ngoc had already led the way to the gate. Yeah, let's go. Then get in the car. Why are you standing there like a lost soul? I got into the car and sat down. Then I asked Ngoc, "Ngoc, Mr. Vinh said your house is haunted. Do you believe it?" "I do." Ngoc's response was cold and emotionless. "You believe it, but your tone lacks any emotion. Why is that?" I asked Ngoc again, noting the eerie indifference in her voice. "I'm thinking," she replied. "Thinking about what? Tell me, maybe I'm thinking the same thing." She remained silent for a moment, then asked me, "Do you remember when we went to your grandmother's house to play when we were 5? Her question jogged my memory. Back then, we had just started kindergarten. I remembered it was close to my grandfather's death anniversary, and my aunt, who lived in the south, came to commemorate him. That evening, I invited Ngoc to my grandmother's house to play because it was nearby. My parents let us go alone. We played until after 9 p.m., then each of us took a toy home. Because my family had many children, my aunt bought a lot of toys. I asked for a guitar, while Ngoc got a toy gun. We were singing and walking hand in hand back to Ngoc's house, when suddenly, from among the pineapple bushes, a figure leaped out. It seemed to be squatting because its height was just about the same as ours. It jumped toward us like a frog, and I could see no legs or arms. All I saw was a lump resembling a fish trap, with a tiny head the size of a tennis ball and a few scruffy strands of hair. I couldn't see its face. If it jumps toward me, I'll shoot it dead. Ngoc aimed the toy gun at it and shouted loudly. She was brave, but I was terrified. My soul seemed to flee, and my pants were soaking wet. As she dirtied the toy gun and stepped forward to pick up a brick right in front of her, the dark mass in front of her leaped onto the brick and emitted a chilling laughter. I couldn't stay calm. I turned around and ran, screaming as I forgot about my friend. "Mom! Mom! Help! Mom!" Thankfully, Ngok saw me running and followed suit. I ran back towards my grandmother's house. When people heard my screams, they rushed out to bring Ngok and me inside. Poor child. Who could have scared her like this? Your ancestors, you've grown up but haven't become wiser. Both of you, only 5 years old, and already being teased like this. If I catch whoever scared her, I'll beat them until they're unrecognizable. Your ancestors are despicable. Seeing me pale, trembling, unable to stand steadily, and with my shoes lost, my grandmother couldn't bear it. She went out to scold loudly. Only Ngok remained calmer, still trembling but able to speak. She cried as she recounted the incident to everyone. After she finished, instead of scolding, my grandmother rushed inside, grabbed a handful of salt and rice, put them in a bowl, then led us home. As we walked, she scattered the salt and rice on the road, muttering something I couldn't hear clearly. When we reached the spot where we were teased, my grandmother asked, "Is this the place?" I had no strength to speak, so I just nodded. Looking at the brick, it was no longer intact but shattered. Oh, what creature could do this? Just a moment ago, it was a solid brick. I panicked at the sight. After that day, I fell ill with a fever for a whole month, while Ngok recovered quickly, just having a mild fever for one day. Since then, our parents didn't allow us to go out at night. Yeah, I remember. It was that Chin, the son of Uncle Sao, who teased us. His mother scared the daylights out of me. I was sick for a whole month. That's my mother and yours conspiring together. They said it was Chin to prevent us from being scared. If not him, then who else could it be? You think about it. I didn't think about it. My mother told me. She only told the truth after I kept asking her. Hearing her, I began to suspect. It was indeed unlikely for someone without limbs to jump like that. And why was its head the size of a tennis ball? And the brick, who could jump with such force to shatter it like that? What did your mom say? I asked Ngok. Do you remember the incident where 2 mothers and children died at the gate of my house? My mom said that after that incident, she went to see a fortune teller, and they said that you and I were affected by the spirits, which is why you got sick for a month. My mom told your mom, but she probably didn't want to worry you, so she kept it hidden. I was stunned, realizing that this had happened over 20 years ago, and I was just finding out now. I have to go ask my mom, why didn't you tell me? When did you find out? I asked Ngok. I just found out too, after the incident with Mrs. Yen appearing the other day. My mom told me then. Since then, I've thought that it couldn't have been a person because no human would be so deformed. But as a child, I couldn't think much, and I didn't believe what adults said. I had heard many stories about these 2 ghostly mothers teasing people, but I couldn't believe that I had also been teased by them without even knowing. Recently, Mr. Vinh said that Ngok's house was haunted, maybe by these 2 ghostly mothers. But what did that have to do with the 3 Westerners and Mrs. Yen? Everything was becoming tangled like a spider's web. The more I thought about it, the more I felt that something was not right in Ngok's house. Because we were close friends and neighbors, we often slept at each other's houses. And there were many times when I encountered inexplicable situations. Hey, get down, we're home. Why are you so spaced out today? Get down, I'm carrying the bike. Oh, did a dog bite you, Ngok? You're lost in thought. So many things, I don't have to think about it. Hey, clean up your mouse hole at home so that the lady can come over to sleep tonight. Hehe. I hurried home to verify Ngok's words. I asked my mom, and the result was 100% accurate, not a single word off. Because I was sick for a month, my mom was very worried. She didn't want to upset me, so she kept it hidden until now when I asked. I thanked my mom for caring for me. If she had told me the truth back then, I probably wouldn't be normal now because I was haunted for a long time, crying whenever I tried to sleep because I was afraid of nightmares. As planned for the evening, after dinner, I asked my parents for permission to sleep over at Ngok's house to review our lessons. We went out for ice cream and some fun before returning. Ngok's room was in the attic. Although the house was only one floor, it was built with a loft-style roof to provide space for drying grains. Therefore, the attic was quite spacious. Since they had a daughter, Ngok's parents gave her this separate space. Climbing onto the bed, I slid under the covers and suddenly remembered the upcoming exam. Tomorrow was our crucial high school entrance exam, determining whether we could continue our education. In our rural community, exams for high school and university were seen as milestones measuring one's education and character, especially for girls. Passing the high school exam meant escaping illiteracy and having more opportunities and paths to pursue, while passing the university exam increased the likelihood of success and marrying a decent husband. Living in such a conservative environment, the pressure of education weighed heavily on our shoulders. Tonight, I went to Ngok's house to review our lessons. We studied until 1 a.m. before going to bed, preparing for the exam the next afternoon. Before sleeping, I reminded Ngok to lock the attic door because I often went up to the rooftop to relax and breathe in the fresh air before studying. After we settled in bed, there was silence, and we focused on resting for the next day's exam. Suddenly, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Since Ngok's staircase had stainless steel railings, the sound of someone gripping the railing was distinct. I thought it might be Ngok's dad coming to check, so I spoke softly enough for the person to hear. "Uncle Duong, did you lock the attic door?" Ngok said she did it before we went to bed. There was a moment of silence, no response, and no footsteps descending the stairs. I turned on my flashlight to illuminate the staircase, but I didn't see anyone. Feeling sleepy and not thinking much, I turned off the light and went back to sleep. Just as I turned my head to the side, I heard footsteps and the sound of someone gripping the railing again. Whether it was due to the hot weather or fear, sweat soaked my back and I shook Ngok awake. "Ngok, wake up! I heard someone walking up the stairs." Ngok groggily sat up, turned on the light, and checked around. She gave me an irritated look. "You're crazy. There's no one here." "No, I really heard it. Twice. I thought it was Uncle Duong, but there was no response when I asked. Maybe you should go downstairs and ask your dad if it was him." Ngok rushed downstairs and turned on the lights in the lower floor. She woke her dad up and asked, "Dad, did you just go upstairs? Why did your dad go up? You guys finished studying at 1 o'clock, right? When Ninga told you to lock the attic door, I heard it. The door was locked, so why would your dad go up again? Let me sleep. I have to work tomorrow. Your mom and you are depriving me of sleep." Being woken up, Uncle Duong was a bit grumpy, which was unusual because he's usually as gentle as a lamb. But if it wasn't Uncle Duong, then who was it? Could I have been dreaming? No? It couldn't be a dream because I heard it twice. Well, forget it. Let's go back to sleep. I'll read over the material again before the exam, and my memory is quite good, so I don't need to review much. In the afternoon, Ngok and I did well on the literature exam. On the way back, She made plans for me to come to her house tonight to study because she struggled a bit more with math than I did. Okay, I'll come over tonight. Why don't you go buy some snacks for the evening? You were hungry last night, weren't you, girl? So, as agreed, at 8 p.m., I packed my books and went to her house. Hey, Ngok, I feel like I'm imposing. I'm tutoring you here, but I always end up coming to your house. It's not fair. Well, your house doesn't have the same conditions as mine, haha. Ngok teased me when she noticed my confusion. Well, she was right. My study lamp and desk were of poor quality. If I continued to study like this, I would surely develop a crooked spine and poor eyesight sooner or later. Oh well, I'll endure it for the sake of the circumstances. You monkey! You're lucky I bought you snacks again after tutoring you. Don't get too spoiled. Seeing me silent, she thought she had said something wrong and tried to tease me. You're not wrong, but you're mistaken. I'm not that petty, girl. After almost finishing 3 test papers, it was already 12:30 a.m. Seeing that I had reviewed quite a bit, I asked Ngok to go to bed. Go to bed? And did you lock the attic door? I'll lock it for you. Yeah, not yet. You go lock it. I'll finish this last problem. Okay, I'll turn off the lights and go to bed first. Because I was a bit tired today, I went to sleep before Ngok did, laying down and falling asleep without knowing when she would sleep. Once again, I heard those footsteps. This time, I didn't panic. I lay still to observe. The sound of someone gripping the railing on the stairs became clearer. I woke Ngok up so she could hear it too. Ngok, wake up! There's someone coming up. As I called her, I covered her mouth with my hand so she wouldn't make any noise. Ngok woke up, seeming to understand, and stayed quiet. The footsteps continued, getting closer and closer. We both stared at the staircase, straining our eyes to see who it was, but all we saw was a vague shadow, unsure if it was a man or a woman. Ngok called out, "Dad, is it you?" The shadow stopped and tilted its head, as if looking towards us, but still didn't respond. My heart was racing too fast. I fumbled with the flashlight, clicking it on, but there was no one there. No one at all. I was too scared to move, lying still, while Ngok had already rushed downstairs. I turned on all the lights and woke everyone up trembling, telling, Who went up the stairs? They went to Dad's room. There's a ghost in our house. Uncle Duong calmly called me down to verify, then had Ngok and me sleep downstairs in their room while they went up to Ngok's room. That night, we kept the lights on all night to sleep. The next night, Ngok didn't dare sleep at home and asked her parents if she could sleep at my house instead. But Uncle Duong and Aunt An didn't believe in ghosts. They thought we were just tired from studying too much and were dreaming. Only Ngok and I knew whether it was real or a dream. Tonight, she came over to my house to sleep. After finishing studying, I carefully drew back the curtain and waited for her to use the restroom before whispering to her. Ngok, are you still scared? Can you talk about ghosts with me? Heh. I'm scared of ghosts, but hearing your laugh makes me more scared of you. What kind of girl laughs like a man when seeing a girl? Oh, you little rascal. Remember, we still have 2 more exams. Be careful. I'll let you study alone. I teased her, but I wouldn't leave her alone to study. It would be boring without her. I pulled her onto my bed and began recounting the old story. 4 years ago, when I was in 5th grade, there was a team of electricians here to set up high-voltage electrical poles for the villagers. They rented our house to stay during the construction days. They used to come and go every day, but today it rained heavily, and they had some large iron bars that couldn't be brought back home, so they set up a tent outside to watch them. That night, my parents stayed up late because of some work. At midnight, I was startled awake by a crying sound, "Oh, ooh, ee," followed by a lullaby echoing in the distance, "Ah, oi, ee, ah, ah, oh." Hearing my dad, I woke up and ran to lock the gate. When I came back in, my dad said to my mom, "He's appeared again tonight." I heard it, but I didn't care, turning my head back to sleep. The next morning, Uncle Hugh, the leader of the electrician team who slept in the tent last night, was washing his face and brushing his teeth. He complained, "Fwang, does your house have a young child?" My dad probably understood what Uncle Hugh meant, but pretended not to. "No, there's no child. They're all grown up in Fwang's house. The youngest is the same age as Nga. There are no young children. Why do you ask?" "No young child, huh? Then maybe they have relatives with a young child visiting or something. Last night, the kid cried a lot. The mom kept singing lullabies, but the kid wouldn't stop crying. If they know them, they should take the child to see a doctor. It's not right to let them cry so much. They're not making human sounds anymore." It's chilling. Seeing Uncle Hugh's honesty and concern, my dad decided not to hide it anymore and told him the truth to prevent any misunderstandings or worse situations. "You go inside and have a drink, then I'll tell you about this. Sit down here. Actually, I heard it last night too, but it wasn't the sound of a crying child." "Then what was it? A cat meowing?" "No, because I clearly heard the mother singing a lullaby." "Ah, right. It's true that the sound of a crying child with a lullaby is there, but it's not a human, brother. It's a ghost. The mother and child died here a long time ago. Sometimes when it rains lightly or the weather changes, they appear like that." Hearing my dad's words, Uncle Hugh stood up, mouth agape. "You mean it's not human?" "My wife heard it crying a lot last night. I was even about to run over and see what was wrong. It's really unsettling, but luckily your ancestors protected us. All right, no more staying up or keeping watch tonight. Forget about those heavy iron bars. Whoever wants them can take them. You two finish your work this afternoon, then bring back whatever light stuff you can carry. As for those big iron bars, just leave them outside. I'm not going to watch over them anymore." Uncle Hugh couldn't keep calm and quickly assigned tasks to the workers before going to the tent to gather belongings. Not fully satisfied with his curiosity, he ran back to ask my dad, "But how did they die, and why did I hear their cries near Mr. Duong's house?" "They died right in front of Mr. Duong's gate. The mother and child died during the resistance against the French colonialists. They somehow ended up at Mr. Duong's house, which back then was just a banana grove with a broken boat from someone's house dumped there. Probably due to labor pains, the mother crawled into the boat to give birth. The next day, when people saw fresh blood on the ground, they turned the boat over and found the mother and child dead. Since then, occasionally, they appear to tease people. Why didn't they build a shrine for them?" Uncle Hugh asked. "How do you know who they are to build one? Besides, when you're starving, you don't care about anything else, let alone worrying about such things." "So did Mr. Duong's family get bothered by them?" "I'm not sure about that, but a few months ago, I saw Mrs. An inviting a priest over for a ritual, so maybe they did get bothered." "Yeah, that's right." "Why did Ngok's family invite a priest over? For what occasion?" I suddenly remembered and decided to ask her. "Hey, you, is it because of this incident that your family invited the priest over for a ritual?" "What incident?" Ngok pretended not to know with me. "So it's the injustice of these two souls, or the shadow we saw last night." Not letting me finish, Ngok cut in. "It's your fault. It's late. Go to sleep. We have exams tomorrow. I'll tell you tomorrow." "Okay, tomorrow then. Good night." This one keeps their word. If they say they'll tell me tomorrow, they definitely will. Well, time to sleep. There are more important things to do tomorrow. If I get low scores this time, I might fail high school. After some thought, I drift off to sleep, not stirring until my mom wakes me. I wake up, have breakfast, prepare my stationery for the exam, and remind Ngok again. Remember to tell me the story tonight. Got it. Wishing each other good luck in the exam, we each head off to our respective exam rooms. Tonight feels more exciting than usual. Maybe it's because I'm about to hear Ngok's family story. Honestly, I've been curious every time I saw Ngok's mom invite the priest over for a ritual, but I never dared to ask because once I asked, Ngok scolded me as being nosy, and it made me feel ashamed. Besides, when I was younger, I had more things to worry about. But not knowing something you're curious about can be annoying. So tonight, I managed to coax Ngok into telling me. After dinner and cleaning up, I head to my room and wait for Ngok to come over. I have an English exam tomorrow, so I don't need to study much today. I want to satisfy my curiosity by clearing up everything I've been curious about for so long. You're early today, huh? Remembered me? Remembered you, my foot. My family is having dinner early today. All right, let's get to studying. We don't need much revision today. We need to finish quickly. Okay, got it. So we sat down at our study desks, and by 9 o'clock, we were done. Putting away our books, we dropped the curtain and sat cross-legged on the bed, waiting eagerly. I got straight to the point. Ngok? I heard people say that there were 2 mother and child spirits who died in front of your house ages ago. Is that true? Ngok wasn't surprised by my question. I had asked it once before, and they had scolded me. They probably expected me to ask about it tonight. Yeah, my mom's rituals have something to do with it. Like what? Like what? Tell me. We've been friends for so long, and you've never told me anything. You're as secretive as a cat burying its poop. I've heard people say they encountered ghosts at your house's gate, but I didn't believe it because you never told me. I didn't tell you because you're a scaredy cat. You got so sick when you were little after being teased by ghosts for a month. Who would dare to tell you? That was when I was 5. Now I'm in 9th grade, 16 years old. I'm not afraid anymore, so tell me. Ngok began her story. The first time her mother invited the priest over for a ritual was when she was in the 4th grade. She remembers it was the anniversary of her grandparents' death, and her maternal grandparents were commemorated with an evening feast. Although her maternal grandparents didn't live with them, they were buried on the same plot of land. Since their house was spacious and only her father lived there, they split the land into 2 parts. The front half, near the road, was for their house and business, while the back part, about 20 meters from the gate, was for her grandparents to live peacefully in their old age, surrounded by farming and animal husbandry. After the feast, she stayed to sleep with her grandmother. Ngok had a problem with bedwetting, so her mother always had to wake her up to go to the bathroom every night. That night, she was supposed to sleep with her grandmother, so her grandmother would take over that duty from her mother. But her grandmother fell asleep and didn't wake up until 2 in the morning. Ngok, wake up and go to the bathroom, dear. Still groggy with sleep, Ngok vaguely acknowledged, but she remained lying on the bed. Her grandmother got up and went to the door, but didn't see any movement from Ngok, so she whispered back, "If you don't get up soon, I'll let you go alone." Their house didn't have an indoor toilet. It was located at the back of the garden. Ngok abruptly woke up, threw off her blanket, and looked after her grandmother, then called out, "Grandma, I'm going. Wait for me, please?" She sat on the edge of the bed, searching for her slippers, squinting towards the darkest corner, which was where her grandfather's room was. In the dim darkness, she was startled to see a man about 1.6 meters tall, leaning on a cane, standing right outside the door. He wore a long robe that reached past his knees. "No, it's not Grandpa." She blinked her eyes wider, trying to see more clearly who it was, but she couldn't discern anything. She quickly kicked one leg out and ran towards her grandmother. Grandma, our house has a ghost! Boo-hoo!" Hearing her crying, her grandfather came out of the room with a flashlight. "Boo-hoo! Grandpa, our house has a ghost. I saw a man wearing a long robe, leaning on a cane, standing in front of your room." Ngok pointed towards the room with teary eyes. Her grandmother hugged her and comforted her to calm down. "Oh, I know. Calm down, it's not a ghost. Your grandparents are here. No ghost would dare to come in." "Okay, Grandma, take her to the bathroom and then back to bed." Her grandfather looked at the two of them for a moment before turning back into the room. The next morning, her grandfather called her parents down to talk. She waited for her parents to leave before sneaking up to eavesdrop outside the door. Inside, she could hear her grandfather speaking seriously. "Yesterday, Ngok saw her grandpa." "I heard what Ngok said, but how did you know it was him?" Ngok's father responded. "When Ngok saw him last night, I also dreamt about him. He came to let us know that there's a spirit here, but it's not causing any harm. Since our house is on its land, but we don't make it messy or disrespectful, it lets us live in peace." "Is that so, Dad? Why is it that for the past few nights I keep dreaming of a woman in tattered clothes, disheveled hair, holding a child standing outside the gate, begging for food, and then chasing me around the yard? Could it be that the mother and child died suffocating in that capsized boat?" When Uncle An heard his father-in-law speak, he suddenly remembered the dream he once had. When they bought this plot of land, his grandparents-in-law knew about the two deaths here, so they invited a reputable priest for rituals and ceremonies to appease the spirits. They thought it was settled, but after dreaming like this last night, they weren't at ease. So his father-in-law told his mother-in-law to invite the priest for another ritual to ensure peace for a while. Until one day, Mr. Duong visited Mr. Kung, a widower who lived behind Ngok's house. Mr. Kung said to Mr. Duong, "Duong, my friend, for the past few nights when I went to the bathroom, I saw two flickering lights near your house's gate. They were jumping up and down, sometimes jumping into the river and then jumping back onto the bank. Do you think they're humans or ghosts? You know me well. I don't believe in ghosts and spirits, but even if there were, I'd have to see them with my own eyes. So last night, I went to the empty plot of land next to your house to spy. Do you know what I saw?" Hearing this, Mr. Duong was alarmed because he knew Mr. Kung's temperament. If something wasn't clear, he would make it clear. "What did you see, Mr. Kung? Please tell me quickly. Your hesitation is making me anxious." "At first, from a distance, I thought they were just two green lights. Initially, I thought they were lights from those thieves who deliberately did so to deceive people. I was determined to catch them red-handed for the crime of theft. So I cautiously approached them, and when I got closer, about 3 or 4 meters away, I could clearly see that they were two people, a woman and a child, but I couldn't see their faces. They were playing and laughing with each other. Their laughter was eerie, Duong. I'm sure they weren't human because no one in their right mind would take a child out at night and jump into the river like that. But since they dared to appear and tease me, I wasn't afraid of them. When I saw them, I rushed out from the bushes and grabbed them. "Oh my, Mr. Kung, why did you take such a risk? What's the point of joking around with ghosts? So what happened next? Did you see anything else?" "I didn't see anything else. As soon as I touched them, they disappeared. I only felt a chill, like touching an icebox. I wasn't afraid of anything. If I'm not afraid of people, why would I be afraid of ghostly things? But I'm telling you this so you know that there's a ghost near your house's gate. Adults might not be afraid, but those 2 children of yours might be. Be mindful of them, lest they fall ill from being teased by ghosts." Mr. Duong's face turned pale, his forehead drenched in sweat, filled with anxiety. He hurried back home to tell Ngok's mother to ask for an amulet and wear it for him. That evening, just after Ngok's family finished dinner, they saw Mr. Kung's son running over. "Mr. Duong, please come to my dad's house quickly. He's not feeling well." "What happened to Mr. Kung?" "I don't know. When I came home from work this afternoon, I found my dad mumbling to himself, and after dinner, he had a seizure and collapsed. I couldn't handle him alone. Please come and help me." Mr. Duong quickly put on his shoes and ran to Mr. Kung's house. Seeing Mr. Kung lying on the ground with wide-open eyes, his body stiff and his face pale, Mr. Duong shuddered. He and Mr. Kung's son tried to lift him up and then carried him to the car, one supporting him while the other held him. However, before they reached the hospital, Mr. Kung stopped breathing. At the hospital, the doctor examined him and said that Mr. Kung had suffered from shock, leading to a heart attack and a ruptured brain blood vessel. But why did Mr. Kung go into shock? When Mr. Duong visited him earlier that day, he seemed happy and healthy, enjoying life. His wife passed away early, leaving him to raise his son alone. His son worked from morning till evening, and they hadn't had a chance to talk yet. So what caused Mr. Kung to go into shock and die? Only Mr. Kung knew the reason, and Mr. Duong's family could only speculate based on the story Mr. Kung told at noon. Listening to Ngok's story, I felt like I was a person from another world stepping into this one. Everything seemed blurry, and nothing was as I had heard or seen before. So it turns out that Mr. Kung died because of a supernatural being, huh? I heard people say he died suddenly. I don't know. That's just my parents' speculation because of what he said before he died. After Mr. Kung's death, no one mentioned seeing or being harassed by him, so his story was forgotten. Only my family saw the 2 mother and child ghosts after Mr. Kung's death. Meow, meow, who? Oh my God! The temple cat suddenly rushed out, knocking over a stack of documents, making Ngok and me scream. We were scolded by our mother for being too cowardly to even tell ghost stories. Regaining composure, I urged Ngok to continue. Tell me more about how your mother encountered them. Was it a dream or real? It was both. On the night Mr. Kung died, both my parents dreamed again, just like the previous time, with the woman chasing my mother around the yard. The next day, my mother intended to go see and invite the priest for another ritual, but she couldn't because of Mr. Kung's funeral. That evening, when my mother returned from Mr. Kung's house to our gate, she saw 2 dark figures, one big and one small, looming ahead. They advanced slowly toward her, and she wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't move. She was too scared and screamed. When my dad heard her scream, he ran out and took her inside. Her face was ashen, and she fell ill afterward. My dad had to take care of her while also dealing with inviting the priest for the ritual. How come your family kept inviting the priest over repeatedly? Why not perform a protective ritual instead of a gratitude ceremony? I overheard the priest saying that he couldn't perform any protective ritual because we were living on someone else's land and they preferred us to keep things peaceful for business. After the ceremony that day, we didn't see anything anymore. Then who was the shadow we saw the other day? Suddenly remembering the incident of sleeping at Ngok's house the previous night, I asked her. I don't know. My parents didn't say anything. Maybe I'll sleep back home tomorrow night and you can come sleep over with me. Feeling sorry for her, if it were me, I wouldn't dare to sleep at home. So I agreed to sleep over with her tomorrow. Okay, go home tomorrow. It's fine. I'll come over. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow morning is exam day. Turning off the lights and going to sleep, I thought about tomorrow's exam and the events that I had only known the surface of. It was an intriguing thought. Life had many things for people to explore, but everything should be within limits, never to exceed boundaries like Mr. Kung. No one could predict what would happen. And then, Ngok and I both passed the entrance exam for high school and ended up in the same class. As a result, our bond grew stronger day by day, always sticking together. Wherever I was, Ngok was there, and vice versa. We spent even more time together living under the same roof. Both families treated us like daughters, and 3 years had passed since the incident with the shadow, and we hadn't encountered any strange occurrences. This year was our last year of high school, and we were about to step onto a much more crucial milestone, one that would determine our future. Ngok and I continued our days of living and studying together. Today was the day to pay the water bill, but my parents were still not back from Nha Trang due to some urgent matters. With only a few hundred left for food, my brother and I stayed at home to watch over the house. My brother had already explained the situation to the water company a few days ago, but they still cut off the supply. The government employees really had their rules. After dinner, I went to Ngok's house to take a shower. After a stressful day of studying, I relaxed under the cool water, closing my eyes to enjoy the refreshing feeling. Then I heard footsteps approaching the bathroom door, followed by a knock. Ngok? Just wait a sec. I'm almost done. Just 5 more minutes. There was no response, so I assumed it was Ngok knocking and ignored it. I continued to shower while humming along to the melody of Tin Ke, Em Thay Anh Bông Em Vui Như Ngày Xưa, Voi Ôm Anh Sau Những Xa Vời. The sound of a piano playing softly in the night, a song I really liked. Every time I took a shower, I listened to it because the combination of showering and listening to this soothing music was strangely relaxing. Knock, knock, knock. What's up? If you've got something to say it. I told you to wait a bit. Taking a 5-minute shower won't kill anyone. You're such a nutcase. I was annoyed by its attitude. I really hated that kind of teasing. I turned off the water, grabbed a towel to dry off, and dressed neatly. I opened the door, intending to give it a piece of my mind. But all I saw in front of me when the bathroom door swung open was darkness. No figure, no Ngok. I figured she had just gone upstairs. As I ascended the stairs, I saw Uncle Duong and Aunt An sitting in front of the TV. I asked, "Uncle An, where's Ngok? You said she went downstairs to shower and I finished." "Ngok just left to the market to buy noodles. Come over tomorrow morning. I'll cook pork leg noodles for you." "She just left? Okay, I'll come over tomorrow." "Oh, Uncle, could you cook dinner for me tomorrow night? I'll study with Ngok, then sleep over here with her. I'll come over here." After bidding farewell to Ngok's parents, I went home and completely forgot about the recent incident. After school, we cheerfully rode our bikes home. Thinking about last night's events, I realized I would still have to shower at Ngok's house tonight, so I reminded her. "Hey, after dinner tonight, shower early so I can shower afterward and study." "You always shower late. I already told you to shower first yesterday, but when it was my turn, you came down rushing like crazy. Ngok looked puzzled. Huh? What's wrong with you? Last night, when you went to shower, I didn't tell you to shower. I went to buy noodles, and when I got home, you had already left. Right, she did say she was going to the market to buy noodles yesterday, and when I finished showering and went upstairs to ask Aunt An, she said Ngok hadn't come back yet. Then who knocked on the door while I was showering? You didn't knock on the door, did you? Don't mess with me. If you're kidding, I won't come over tonight. I pretended to be in anguish, hoping she would admit to joking. Joking like this could make someone faint on the spot instead of laughing. No, I swear it wasn't me. If you don't believe me, go ask my mom. Yesterday, Aunt Nguyen Bun had a lot of customers, so I had to wait a long time. I went from the moment you started showering until you came back. Oh my God, what was happening? Goosebumps rose on my skin. I grabbed Ngok and clung to her because I couldn't walk, let alone carry her. What's wrong with you? Are you sick or did you catch a cold? Feeling dizzy or faint? Seeing me like this, Ngok rushed to support me, holding on to my arms and legs, asking worriedly, I'm okay, just a bit tired. Can you take me home? She helped me back home, guiding me to bed and leaving a glass of water by my bedside before heading back. She even reminded me, if you're feeling tired today, stay at home. I'll bring dinner over, and if you have a fever, let me know, and I'll get some medicine for you. All right, go ahead. I'll call you later. I closed my eyes, intending to sleep, but the knocking on the bathroom door last night kept me from falling asleep, as I kept thinking about it. If it wasn't Ngok, then who? Could it be that I was just too tired, and my mind was playing tricks on me, like some kind of hallucination, as the old folks often say? Maybe I'm just being paranoid. I tend to see one thing as another and then get scared by my own imagination. I tried to reassure myself, then took out my phone to call my parents and ask when they were coming back. Being alone at home like this was getting boring. My older brother was always out until late at night. Hello, Dad? Are you and Mom done with everything? When are you coming back? There's no water at home, so I've been showering at Ngok's place these past few days. Yeah, I called to let you know. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Dad will buy some gifts when we come back. Have you had anything to eat yet? I haven't eaten yet. I asked Aunt Ann to cook rice. Later, I'll go over there to eat. Okay, have dinner there tonight and go to bed early for school tomorrow. Dad's hanging up now. Okay, bye, Dad. So my parents would be back tomorrow, ending the days of squatting and mooching. It's fine to eat over there, but showering there feels odd to me. I overslept until 7 a.m., then Ngok called to have breakfast. I quickly put on my clothes, packed them into a small bag, and went over to her house for breakfast. After breakfast, I took a shower to avoid having to rush back again. Today, I didn't wash dishes with her, but took advantage of the time when she was washing dishes outside to take a shower. I chatted with her about the boys who were trying to impress her in the rain. Hey, Ninga. Remember the tall guy who stopped us when we were going home from school the other day? That long-necked one? Is he trying to woo you? You're not giving me any credit. We're friends, but one has a dozen suitors and the other is as single as can be. And I don't think I'm ugly. I'm quite beautiful and I sing well, so why doesn't anyone court me? Haha, get back to my story. I'm telling it now. We'll talk about your singlehood later. Hearing me brag about my single status, Ngok burst into laughter. Best friends, huh? True friends worry about each other. Okay, fine. Tell me your story. He's trying to woo you, right? Yeah. I don't know where he got my number from. He texted me last night to ask if I wanted to go out for a drink sometime. Haha, when guys ask my little sister out for drinks, they're really foolish, because she's not alone. I came up with a plan and instigated Ngok. If you agree to go, let me invite Trong and her friends too, so that guy gets a real shock and never does it again. Trong is my cousin, the same age as us, but she's in the class next to Ngok's cousin, so they're friends too. I laid out the plan and asked for Ngok's opinion. You don't like that guy either, right? Then do it my way. We'll cut his tail and have some fun at the same time. Who dares to stop the evil duo in the middle of the road? Ha ha! Hehe! Why are you laughing so creepily, Ngok? Even when you're happy, you should control your emotions. I don't understand how a girl with a laugh like yours still attracts so many guys. After I said this, she fell silent, no longer laughing or making a sound. Ngok, are you done washing the dishes? Ngok? With no response from her, I cracked open the bathroom door and looked outside, but there was no one there and the power was out. That mischievous girl, she finished washing the dishes and didn't bother to say a word. She has no manners at all. I quickly showered, got dressed, and went upstairs to scold her. Hey, I told you to wait for me to finish showering before coming up. Even if you went up first, you could at least greet each other instead of leaving me to talk to myself. What did you say? What's going on between us that I need to talk about? Oh, now you're pulling that tone with me? Then I don't care what happens to you. I'm canceling my plan? Forget it. You little... I pretended to be angry and stormed off to my room. Ngok, seeing me upset, hurriedly followed. Oh my, are you really angry? Haha, I was just joking. And what plan are you talking about? You didn't tell me anything earlier. I ignored her and let her talk to herself. Who told her to leave me alone to talk to myself earlier? What plan are you talking about? Tell me. I don't like that guy. Cut his tail off for me. Seeing her pitiful expression, I decided to let it go, but I still kept a cold demeanor. Stop pretending you don't know. I just explained my plan to you, and you didn't even crack a smile. And now you're asking, and why is your laugh so disgusting today? I can't stand it. Ngok widened her eyes in surprise. I laughed, and it's disgusting? What's wrong with you, Nga? Since yesterday, you've been blaming everything on me. Okay, stop fooling around. I'll overlook last night's incident, but tonight, don't pretend anymore. Your laugh may try to hide it, but I can still recognize it. You went along with the story about the guy who stopped you, and then he texted you last night to go for a drink, right? Yeah, that's right. I was telling you about that, and then I went upstairs to wash the dishes. While I was there, Mom called me to help her write an envelope for tomorrow's wedding celebration. After I finished, you came upstairs. Ngok explained to me, frowning. Looking at her facial expression and gestures, it didn't seem like she was joking. I've known her since we were kids, so I understand all her actions. She only needs to tell one lie, and I can tell from her face, unless she's suddenly become a brilliant actress, and I didn't notice. Are you telling the truth, Ngok? I'm scared of you. Look at my face, look me in the eye. Tell me again, are you telling the truth or joking, Ngok? I'm telling the truth. Ngok reaffirmed once again. So it's real. She wouldn't dare lie to me while looking like that. Oh my God, there's a real ghost. I'm being haunted for real. If it happened once, it could be dismissed as imagination or illusion. But twice in a row like this, there's no denying it. I'm really scared. I dare not stay at Ngok's house anymore. I ran outside pretending to answer the phone. Who's calling? Ngok asked. My brother called. He's at a friend's wedding today, probably drinking or something, and asked me to come home and watch the house. I guess I should go since no one's home. There might be burglars lurking around. I lied to Ngok to go home and sleep. I had to say that, or else I'd have to go back on my promise to sleep here tonight. And now suddenly leaving, she might suspect something. All right then, go home. Oh, and take these bags of snacks home to eat. I thought you were staying here tonight, so I bought 2 bags for us to eat. Take them with you. I won't finish them alone. She handed me the bags of snacks. Holding the bags in my hand, I felt guilty for lying to her, but whatever mistake it was, let it be. I'm too scared already. I've been clenching my teeth to keep calm, but my heart has wanted to jump out for a long time. After saying goodbye to her parents, I dashed home, and only when I arrived could I breathe again. I locked all the doors tightly, turned on all the lights, turned on the TV, played children's music loudly, wrapped myself in a blanket, but still trembled, clinging to it. When my brother saw me coming home, he came out and asked, "Why did you say you were staying at Ngok's house tonight, but came back so soon? And were you two fighting?" No. I didn't want to answer anymore, my eyes glued to the TV. Seeing me shut down, my brother looked at the TV screen even more curiously. "What are you watching? Are you listening to children's music again today? But why do you seem so tense, like you're watching a horror movie?" Scratching the itch, I turned to glare at my brother. I had to tell him, otherwise he wouldn't leave me alone. Shh! I was just haunted. What? Haunted? Where were you haunted? At Ngok's house. I was haunted since yesterday when I went there to shower, but I thought I was hearing things. Today I'm 100% sure it's not a mistake but a real ghost. Yesterday when I was showering, it knocked on the door, and today it pretended to be Ngok and talked to me and laughed. Have you asked Ngok yet? What if Ngok intentionally played tricks on you? I asked her already. It's definitely not her because she knows I'm scared of ghosts. If she was the one, I wouldn't dare go to her house, so I swear it's not her. My older brother nodded. That makes sense. So what are you going to do? I'm not going over to her house at night anymore, and don't go spreading nonsense. What nonsense? Am I off to sell melons like you girls? Well, he's a boy, but he only has drinking buddies, not business partners. After talking to him, I felt much better. It's time to sleep now and figure things out tomorrow. It's true that at my age, sleep comes easily. Earlier, I was so scared, but now that I say it's time to sleep, I can sleep. The next morning, everything seemed normal again. I didn't tell Ngok anything because I knew she was just as scared as I was, and being in her house, if I told her, who knows how she would react. In the days that followed, there were many times when she invited me to sleep over at her house, but I always found excuses not to go, or if I did go, I would quietly slip away and then make up excuses, saying that as a grown girl, my parents didn't allow me to sleep around anymore. Only she still occasionally came over to my house to sleep. Those were the experiences I had, the things I encountered when I was just a middle and high school girl. Even after going to university, I completely forgot about those terrifying memories, only to have such things happen to me again, and even worse, at this very familiar house. It was me, no one else. Going to university, everyone went their separate ways. I studied in Hanoi, while Ngok studied in Saigon. Because of the geographical distance, we could only call and check on each other through Facebook and Zalo. And meeting in person was only possible once or twice a year during summer breaks and Lunar New Year. But that didn't fade our friendship. Going to university, living in a new environment with new people. Everyone made new friends, but no one ever forgot their best friend from the days of wearing shorts and sandals, growing up together and going through so many ups and downs. Hey Ngok, have you finished your exams? How many subjects do you have left? When are you coming back? I called her to get her return date so I could pick her up at the airport. From Saigon to Hanoi, she had to fly back first and then take a coach to get home. I had finished my exams and had my summer break, but I stayed a few more days to wait for her to come back. Oh, I've booked my ticket. I'll finish my exams tomorrow and I'll be back in Hanoi in the afternoon. I'll be there tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll get to meet each other. Just now, Aunt An called and said to come over for dinner tomorrow night, so Ngok must have already informed her mom. I tidy up my belongings neatly. Since I have a 2-month summer break this year, I have to bring back a lot of clothes and shoes. It's been a year since we last saw each other, so I'm really excited. As I pack my things, I also plan out the schedule for this summer, but first, I have to clean up the mess at home tomorrow. After fussing for a while, the sky starts to darken, and I have to go to the market to buy groceries for dinner. My roommates and I, both studying, came back with nothing to eat. I live with 2 senior students this year. They're taking extra courses to graduate early, so there are still some subjects they haven't finished. I thought about registering for extra courses next year, but seeing them like this, I think I'll pass. It's better to follow the regular curriculum to avoid any hassle. My health isn't good, and if I keep studying like this, I'll die early. Today the weather is lovely. It's rare to have such a feeling in Hanoi, neither sunny nor gloomy, with a gentle breeze and breathable air, not stifling like usual. Perhaps it's because it's the university summer break, so Hanoi is less crowded and less stuffy. Standing in the lobby waiting, I can't help but feel a bit pitiful seeing couples holding hands. I'm almost 22, but still, no one pays attention to me. Is it because I'm ugly? Or is it just not my fate? Hey Nunga, I'm here. My friend calls me like she's calling a crazy person, squeezing in between a couple holding hands. Sorry, but since you're so lucky, I'm going to stand right in front of a lonely person. I run straight to hug my best friend, laughing and chatting happily, asking about everything. And then we head to the bus stop together. On the way home, we chat endlessly until we're too tired and fall asleep without realizing it. The bus stops in front of my house, and both our parents are already waiting. That feeling is so joyful and satisfying, just like when we were kids and our parents picked us up from kindergarten. Although I only go home once a month, I still feel excited. After greeting the adults, each of us goes to our own house. I ask Uncle Duong and Aunt An if I can have dinner at home tonight because I just got back, and I want to have dinner with my parents. I make plans to have lunch at Ngok's house tomorrow, and then the next day, my mom will cook for her. Tonight, just like every time I come home, I ask my mom if I can sleep with her to talk. It's the usual question, and every time my mom asks, "Do you have a boyfriend?" Sigh. It's boring to answer. I change the subject, but I have to find something more important than this topic for my mom to listen to. Mom, do you remember the times when I told you I was teased by ghosts at Ngok's house? Instead of changing the subject, I don't remember. Caught off guard by my mom, I awkwardly laugh it off but try to keep a serious expression. Mom, I'm serious, because lately I've been feeling like something's pressing on me. I don't know if it's because I'm studying too much or if it's related to spiritual matters. Mom, can't you see I've lost weight? I'm really exhausted. Just talking big to make it sound dramatic. Ever since I started studying in Hanoi, my dreams have been very peaceful. If my mom sees me looking stressed, she believes it, but still maintains a gentle and caring demeanor towards me. You still have to study, but you have to study in a scientifically reasonable way. You have to know how to protect your health. Be diligent about eating. Tomorrow I'll buy you some milk. During the summer break, stay at home. I'll take care of you. Don't go out to work unnecessarily. Yes, I know, but I'm asking you, Mom, answer me. Yeah, I remember. So what? Recently, have you heard anything from Aunt An's house? I haven't heard anything, but just the other day at the stream at the end of the village, something happened. What happened, Mom? I toss the phone aside and sit quietly to eavesdrop on what's happening. If my mom said something was happening, it definitely wasn't something simple. That boy Tom from Mrs. Owen's house died. Hearing my mom say the boy died, I was shocked and my whole body was covered in goosebumps. Tom is Mrs. Owen's oldest son who lives next to Mr. Kean's house, the man haunted by the Western ghost in part 1. He's only 5 years old, but he's quite mischievous and knows everything. He treasures me a lot, so every time I come back, he runs over to play. But today, since I got back, I haven't seen him. I was planning to go to Mrs. Owen's house tomorrow and bring him some candy as a gift, but now I hear this news. Oh, what happened to Tom? Mom? What happened? Last month when I came back, he seemed very healthy. Poor boy, he's so bright and handsome like a little Buddha, but now he's gone. He drowned in the stream at the end of the village. His mom said a few days before he died, he had some strange symptoms. Strange symptoms? Mom? I didn't understand what my mom meant by strange symptoms. Could it be another mysterious death? I pricked up my ears to listen to my mom's story so as not to miss a single word. That day was Saturday afternoon. It had been scorching hot all day when suddenly at 3 p.m., a thunderstorm rolled in, dark clouds covering the sky and making it gloomy. Mrs. Owen left a pile of unfinished fabric and rushed to the balcony to take in the clothes, forgetting to tell Tom to stay inside because it was about to rain and the wind was picking up. Tom saw his mom going to the balcony, so he ran downstairs to get the superhero-shaped balloon his dad had bought him in the morning. Afraid it would fly away, Mrs. Owen tied it to a chair downstairs. As she struggled to untie the string, she accidentally let go, and the balloon was blown outside by the wind. But because it was tied to a small rock underneath, the balloon didn't fly high and stayed close to the ground. Tom chased after it to the stream at the end of the village, slipped and fell into the water. With the storm and rain, no one was out on the streets. If only someone had passed by at that time, the poor boy wouldn't have died like that. As my mother recounted the story, she did so with a heavy heart. We all loved that beautiful, well-behaved boy dearly. Pausing for a moment to swallow her tears, my mother continued. After Mrs. Owen finished hanging the clothes, she didn't see Tom. She thought he had gone downstairs to use the bathroom, but after waiting for a long time without seeing him come up, she felt a burning sensation in her chest and hurriedly ran downstairs. As she ran, she called out frantically, "Tom, Tom, Tom!" Looking at the chair where she tied the balloon for Tom this morning, she didn't see the balloon anywhere. Knowing something was wrong, she ran up to the top floor to get a better view, and that's when she saw him. Tears flooded her eyes as she looked around. There's the balloon. But where's her son? Where's Tom? She couldn't see him. Mrs. Owen rushed downstairs, ran to the riverbank, where the balloon was tangled in the bushes. Underneath, the string was still tied to a small rock. She glanced around desperately, calling out, "Tom! Tom!" Her heart stopped when she saw Tom's sandals floating in the middle of the river. She threw herself into the icy water, diving and searching desperately for her son. As she searched, she looked around with hope, hoping to see him on the shore, calling out to her. Hearing Mrs. Owen's urgent cries, people nearby rushed out. Seeing her struggling in the river, they understood something was wrong. 5 men jumped in. 1 helped Mrs. Owen to the shore, and 4 others split up to search for Tom's body. "We found him! We found him!" Tom's body was in the middle of the river, buried under the mud in the deepest part. One person had to dive deep to clear away the heavy layer of mud covering his body, while the others on the surface pulled his legs to bring him up. Once Tom's body was brought to the shore, someone carried him on their shoulders, running back and forth, then laid him down to perform CPR. Trying everything, but Tom showed no signs of waking up, his body turning purple, mud constantly flowing from his nose and mouth. Everyone looked at each other, shaking their heads, signaling that there was no hope left. Tom left on a rainy and windy afternoon, leaving everyone's sympathy. Mrs. Owen hugged her son tightly in her arms, crying and blaming herself. "Tom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's because of me. It's because of me that you're in this situation, my child. Tom, wake up. Don't leave me, Tom." Her cries of sorrow made everyone around them ache, and seeing the mother and son, no one could hold back their tears. Taking Mrs. Owen and Tom home, the neighbors stayed to comfort and help the family deal with the aftermath. As for Uncle Luan, Tom's father, when he arrived home and saw his son, he collapsed in pain without saying a word. He hugged his son one last time, stroking his hair, touching his face and lips, his voice choked with sobs. "If there's another life, come back to your father. Father loves you. Farewell, my son." Then he stood up, bowed his head to thank everyone for their help. Whether he bowed to thank or to hide his tears, waiting for them to fall, he couldn't collapse. He had to be strong for his wife and the little one about to be born. Tom's funeral was quiet, without any noise, just like his departure. 3 days later, Uncle Luan invited the monk to come and pick up Tom's soul. The whole village came to see. Some, out of curiosity, stood around gossiping, while others, filled with sorrow, shed tears. Feeling sorry for Tom and for Mrs. Owen, who had just given birth to a newborn and was likely to be overwhelmed by her thoughts, neighbors took turns visiting her, chatting to ease her sadness. Mrs. Owen recounted that before he died, Tom often said strange things. Sometimes, while playing, he would talk to himself and then proudly tell his mother that he had a new friend. Mrs. Owen would tease him, asking where his friend was, what their name was, whether they were a boyfriend or girlfriend. Tom would reply that his friend was a boyfriend, that he didn't have a name, and that he lived outside by the river at the end of the village. Thinking it was just a child's imagination influenced by cartoons, and being alone at home taking care of 2 young children while also managing household chores, Mrs. Owen didn't have time to pay attention to her son's fanciful stories. Hearing this, Mrs. Owen burst into tears, pounding her chest with her hand and lamenting. "You too, aren't you going to sleep?" Seeing the light still on in the room, Dad came in from outside to remind my mother and me to go to bed. "All right, go to sleep, or Dad will scold you again. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to Mrs. Owen's house to light incense for Tom. Oh, buy him some packets of snacks too. There was a time he thought you were coming home, so he ran over to play. He told me to call you and tell you to buy him snacks whenever you come back." My mother's words brought tears to my eyes. I loved Tom like my own brother. Every time I came back, he would cling to me and refuse to let go, even insisting on sleeping with me once. Tomorrow, I must go visit him. Tom's story kept replaying in my mind, and the more I thought about it, the more it seemed wrong. Before he died, didn't he tell Mrs. Owen that he had a friend? Why would his friend live by the river at the end of the village? But at that part of the village, there were no houses with children. Mr. Kian's youngest child was already in high school, and there were no children at Ngok's house either. Or, I suddenly remembered the image of the two spirits in front of Ngok's house that Aunt Anne had seen once. Yes, that's right. Perhaps Tom was led away by a ghost. Mom, could Tom at Mrs. Owen's house have been taken by a ghost? Unable to remain calm, I called out to my mother. Just go to sleep. What good does it do to think about such nonsense? The person is already gone. Thinking won't solve anything. Knowing this, but how could I sleep when there were so many thoughts in my head? This morning, I woke up early, went to the market to buy fruits and a few packets of snacks, then went to ask Ngok to go with me to Mrs. Owen's house. I didn't know if he had heard about it yet, but he also cherished Tom a lot. Just as we reached the door, we saw Ngok calmly walking over. "Are you going to Mrs. Owen's house to offer incense for Tom?" he asked. "Yeah, you already know? I was about to call you. Let's go together." The two of us carried our things to Mrs. Owen's house. The door was slightly ajar, and incense smoke still lingered inside. The atmosphere was cold and mournful, sending shivers down our spines. Remembering Tom running to open the door and then hugging my leg to show off everything in the world, I couldn't hold back my tears. Wiping away my tears, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. A picture of Tom was placed neatly on the altar, facing out towards the door. His innocent smile and sparkling eyes, once full of joy, now seemed filled with sadness. "Mrs. Owen, I've come to visit you with Ngok." Mrs. Owen rushed out from the room and hugged me tightly, crying. Her tears seemed to have been suppressed for so long, only to burst out today. "Nga, Tom has left me. He's really gone." I helped Mrs. Owen sit down on a chair, instructed Ngok to place the items on the altar, and then sat beside Mrs. Owen to comfort her. "It's okay, Mrs. Don't be sad and don't think too much. It's fate. Perhaps in another family, he'll live a better and more fulfilled life. You have to be strong. If down there he sees you like this, how can Tom be at peace to move on?" After consoling Mrs. Owen for a while, she wiped her tears and smiled at me, a smile filled with hidden pain to the bone. "When he was alive, he always mentioned you. Sometimes he would run over to see if you were back. He said he missed you, Nga. He said when you came back, he would come over to sleep with you. Nga, my sister's back. Nga, come play with me." Approaching the altar, Mrs. Owen gently caressed Tom's photo, sighing. I stood up, lit an incense stick, and clasped my hands together in prayer. "Tom, I came back last night. The day before yesterday, I told Mom to buy you snacks, and today, I brought them over. You watch over Mom and Dad down there and your little sister. Keep them safe. We all up here will pray for you. Adi da Fat." I placed the incense stick in the holder and emptied the snacks onto a plate. These were snacks I often ate, and every time he came over to play, I would buy them for him to share. He loved them so much that he once said when he grew up, he would open a snack factory just for me to enjoy. The more I thought about it, the more tears welled up in my eyes. Even though I advised Mrs. Owen like this, I myself couldn't accept the fact that Tom had gone forever. After confiding with Mrs. Owen until noon, I asked to take my leave. Since I had lunch at Ngok's house today, I rushed home to inform my mother before going to his house for lunch. After eating, I went to his room to take a nap because I hadn't slept much last night. As soon as I lay down on the bed, I felt dizzy. I felt like someone was strangling me, and my limbs stiffened, unable to move. Despite Ngok lying right next to me, I couldn't call out to him. I tried to struggle to get up and run outside, but my body felt light and I couldn't move. When I turned around, I saw myself still lying on the bed, eyes tightly shut. Standing at the foot of the bed was a woman with long black hair, dressed in a traditional Vietnamese outfit, her face pale, her deep black eyes staring at me intensely. At my feet was a child about 4 or 5 years old, dirty and disheveled, playing around. He grabbed and twisted my toes, causing them to ache and then go numb, feeling cold and tingling. It felt so real. The child kept running around the bed, climbing on me, pulling my hair and laughing eerily. What was happening? Why was I standing here? Wasn't I the one lying on the bed? I screamed for help, but no one heard. I remembered the chant that my roommate had taught me. She said if I ever felt oppressed by a ghost, reciting this chant would help. I began to chant, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Suddenly, I felt someone pulling my hand. I looked down and it was Tom. Why was he here? It was Tom, right? It seemed like he understood my thoughts. He nodded and shouted loudly, Sister, run! Run now! Run! Quickly! As soon as he finished speaking, I woke up, drenched in sweat, and next to me was Ngok, looking panicked and worried. Why are you like this, Nga? I was shaking you for so long to wake up. You're making me worried. Wiping the sweat off my forehead, still not fully awake, I mumbled in response. I was oppressed by a ghost. I dreamt of Tom. Ngok widened his eyes in surprise. You dreamt of Tom? Or maybe it's because you just came back from Mrs. Owen's house, so you're still thinking about Tom. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I'll go home now. I'm feeling unwell. Maybe I'm tired. If I'm free this afternoon, I'll come over. I dragged my feet slowly back home and lay down on the bed, unable to sleep, just thinking about the dream I just had. The woman standing at the foot of the bed? The little boy? Could it be true? Was Tom taken by that child? That child and the woman. Yes, they must be the two figures. I got up, went to the kitchen, grabbed a handful of salt and a handful of rice, mixed them together and put them in a bag. I then hid the bag from my mother and scattered the mixture from the house gate to the beginning of the village's stream, praying for their souls to be released soon and begging them not to harm me. When I returned home, I accidentally bumped into my mother. Seeing me looking strange, she asked, "What's wrong, Nga? You look tired. Is it about your test scores again?" My mother thought my exam scores weren't good, so I must be thinking too much because of it. No, Mom. All my subjects are in the good range. It's just that I couldn't sleep last night, so I'm a bit tired today. Ah, thinking about Tom, huh? Stop thinking about it. I also miss him, but there's nothing we can do now. Stop mentioning him so he can rest peacefully in the afterlife. That cute and obedient boy, if he couldn't become a monk in death, he'll be reborn as a kind-hearted person. Go inside and help me cook. I still have some vegetables to pick over there. Go pick them. My mother was afraid that I'd be idle at home and think too much, so she found things for me to do. Days went by, and I no longer saw Tom returning in my dreams. After the day he passed away, that was the only time I saw him. And it was also the time he saved me from a nightmare that I would probably never forget in my life. Hey, sis, what are you daydreaming about? Ngok pulled me back to reality. Oh, I was just thinking about the old days, the time when we were still in school. Remember those fun times? Now we're all grown up, getting older together. Ngok followed me as I spoke. Yeah, now that we're working, we have to take care of our own lives. Sometimes I feel exhausted and discouraged, wishing for a miracle to shrink me down so I could stay at home and rely on my parents. As we were talking, Aunt An's voice called from downstairs. Ngok, Nga, are you two asleep? We're not asleep yet. What's up, Mom? Tomorrow night we'll have hot pot. Tomorrow afternoon, you two go to the market to buy some vegetables. I've already ordered beef tendons." "Oh, I thought it was something urgent. Mom could have told us in the morning. Scared me for no reason." Interrupted by Mom, breaking the flow of our conversation, Ngok, who was once a graceful and beautiful girl, suddenly turned into a grumpy old woman, wrinkling her face, blaming Mom. "I'm afraid I'll forget. Your father and I are getting old. Your generation is so difficult, so troublesome. If that dog doesn't fetch you, you'll be single forever. Go to sleep." Hearing Ngok scolded by Mom, I felt oddly happy. At that moment, I really wanted to laugh at her expression. I mimicked Aunt An's words to tease her. "Yeah, difficult, troublesome, grumpy. That dog will get you." She pinched me hard, causing me to grimace in pain, then told me to go to sleep. "Go to sleep and don't forget to put on the charm. And about today, when you meet Mr. Vinh, keep your mouth shut. He specifically warned not to say anything. There must be a reason for it." "Got it?" "I got it. Hey, remember I'm the mastermind behind this, not you. You're just the support, not the one giving orders to me." Hearing her talk, I felt itchy and uncomfortable in my ears. Clearly, if I was the mastermind, I should be the one giving orders. Okay. Just because I'm worried you'll forget. Now go to sleep." "Yeah, sleep. I don't care. Right now, all I care about is enjoying the beef tendon hot pot tomorrow." At 25, when we came home, we still acted like children. Sometimes, it was better not to think or worry about anything. This afternoon, we went to his house very early. To buy a variety of fresh and rare vegetables, we had to go to the big market about 10 kilometers away from my house. So, we brought the bike and went to the market from 1 p.m. to be back early to cook rice. 6 hours sounded long, but if we were busy, it would be fast. Suddenly, 6 hours had passed. After preparing the hot pot, we brought all the vegetables home. The fragrant aroma filled the air, and the taste was so enticing. It had been a long time since I had enjoyed a beef tendon hot pot cooked by my own hands. I felt quite accomplished. Ting ting, ting ting. "Who's calling at this hour?" "We're about to eat dinner." I asked permission from everyone before going outside to answer the phone. It turns out it's the boss calling, probably to discuss next week's meeting. Calling at the wrong time, right when I'm hungry. What a nuisance. Can't even have a peaceful break. With a grumble, I pressed the phone button and heard the sweet voice of the caller. "Hello, boss. Hi, what's up? Yes. I went out to the yard to talk, forgetting to turn on the lights outside. There was only one light shining from inside, so everything wasn't clear. Having relied on the hospitality of Ngok's family for so long, today I finally had the opportunity to carefully admire the surroundings of Ngok's house, which turned out to be quite beautiful. While I was lost in observation, I saw a figure passing by, moving from the upper rooms down to the kitchen. Ngok's house was built in a U-shape, with the kitchen and utility area separated. So to go from the upper rooms to the kitchen, one had to cross a courtyard. I remembered one time when Ngok scared me from behind the door, making me almost faint. Turning off my phone, I quietly followed and made plans to prank her back for her habit of teasing others. The figure entered the kitchen, seemingly aware of my presence, and immediately picked up the pace before disappearing into the unlit, doorless bathroom. "Heh, you like playing big, huh? Well, I'll play along and see who's braver." I approached the bathroom, hiding behind the wall, my eyes fixed on the spot where she would emerge. "This time, I'll give you a real scare," I chuckled inwardly. Click, click. The sound of the bathroom door closing made my skin crawl. She left the door open when going in, now closing it on the way out. Or is she deliberately making noise to tease me? Could she know I followed her in here? Well, even if she tries to scare me, it won't work. Thinking that Ngok might know I intended to scare her, I abandoned my plan and stepped out, standing in front of the bathroom door, pretending I was just coincidentally dealing with my sadness, like her. Ngok, are you done? Mom said turn on the lights when it gets dark and close the door after using the bathroom. No response. I leaned over to see if she was inside, but suddenly a cold gust of wind blew from inside, chilling me to the bone, causing me to freeze for a few seconds. Ngok, I'm turning on the lights for you. Calling her again, there was still no response. I began to feel uneasy, turning on the light switch. The bathroom was empty. Ngok was nowhere to be found. It couldn't be. I clearly saw her go in, and since then, I hadn't seen anyone come out. Staring blankly for a moment, I felt my heart pounding repeatedly when I realized the bathroom had no windows or any openings. So where did the gust of wind come from? And what was the sound of the door? I lost my composure, trembling all over, unable to speak. I turned around and went upstairs, trembling as I walked. Honestly, I wanted to run, but my limbs were stiff and couldn't lift me up. It took a lot of effort for me to move, praying and hoping that the person I saw earlier was Ngok, or if not her, then perhaps Uncle Dung or Aunt Ain, but not something terrifying. It took me nearly 2 minutes to climb from the kitchen to the upper floor. Why are you taking so long, Nga? Did the boss call? Oh my God, why do you look so pale? Are you having low blood pressure again? Seeing that I wasn't acting normal, Ngok rushed out to help. She thought I had low blood pressure because back in high school, I was weak and had low blood pressure, causing dizziness and fainting spells. She helped me sit down and was about to run off to make ginger tea. But I grabbed her hand and asked, "Did you just go to the bathroom?" She looked at me puzzled. "No, I haven't been since last night." That was it. 50% of my hope extinguished, but there was still another 50%. I didn't give up and turned to ask Uncle Dung and Aunt An, "Did either of you go to the bathroom just now?" They looked at me suspiciously. "No, we didn't. We've been waiting for you. Why do you look so pale?" So it was true. I was pranked again. Unable to keep calm anymore, I trembled, tears welling up as I recounted to them what happened. I saw someone go into the bathroom without turning on the light. I thought it was Ngok, so I followed to tease her. But when I got there was no one. Who? Seeing my demeanor and hearing my story, Uncle Dung stood up and told his wife to lock the gate while he grabbed a long iron rod from the room and went down to the kitchen to turn off all the lights and search. He suspected there might be a thief in the house. 15 minutes later, he came back up, sweating profusely, and asked me, "Did you really see someone go into the kitchen?" "I saw it clearly, Uncle. The figure was small, like Ngok, so I thought it was her." "All right, if it's not a thief, then it's good. Maybe you were just seeing things. Stay home, eat and rest. You look too thin lately. Let's eat." Uncle Dung wiped his sweat with a tissue, sat down, and started cooking. Everyone else could eat, but I had no appetite left. I mechanically put some food in my mouth to finish the meal. After cleaning up, I went home, lay on my bed, and pondered. I began to piece together the events. Ngok's previous mention of being haunted by 2 mother-child ghosts, my recent illness after encountering something supernatural, and the warnings from Mr. Vinh about Ngok's house being haunted. It was clear that 80% of the time, it was them. Today was likely another prank by it. I couldn't afford to delay any longer. I had to resolve this issue quickly. They were becoming bolder every day. Thankfully, I still had Mr. Wah, Vinh's amulet, with me. If not for that, I wouldn't dare to guess if I could make it home today. Nga, wake up. It's 7 o'clock. My mom's voice startled me awake. I must have overslept last night. After having breakfast, I rushed over to Ngok's house and found her still snoring on the bed. Get up! Come on! Get up and come to my house! My dad has something to tell you. She was terrified of my dad, so I had to use his authority to get her up. She groggily got up, brushed her teeth, washed her face, and stuffed a piece of bread in her mouth to stave off hunger. While she was chewing, she asked with a muffled voice, "What's up? Why did Uncle Fung call so early?" "I don't know," I replied absent-mindedly, then pulled her along. Once we got home, I told her the truth. "I called you over because I have something to discuss. My dad is crazy. He said, 'Come over to my house. My dad has something to tell you.' He made me all worked up for nothing," she retorted, rolling her eyes and mimicking my earlier words. I shut the door tightly before daring to ask, "Did you get the phone number from the village headman for Mr. Vinh?" "I did." "Why?" she replied indifferently, looking like she wanted to smack me upside the head. But I needed her help, so I had to keep my cool. I continued, "Did Mr. Vinh mention anything about someone picking him up?" "He didn't say, but why suddenly ask about Mr. Vinh?" "Because I'm too anxious. I don't know if Mr. Vinh has any solutions for me these past few days. Also, it's been a while since you've noticed anything strange at your house, right?" "What do you mean by strange? Is there something?" "Yeah. Remember those times I slept over at your house?" Ngok seemed to recall something important. Her eyes lit up like a fully charged light bulb. "Oh, I see now. You mean that thing about someone going up the stairs, right? I still hear it occasionally, but I only hear it. I don't see anything. I've gotten used to it, and since it doesn't harm me, I'm not afraid." So that was it, yet she didn't tell me. Maybe she was afraid I wouldn't dare to come over. Ring, 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 Ngok's phone rang. "Answer the phone," I urged her. "Wow, it must be important. It's Mr. Vinh calling." "Hello, grandson. How are you?" I anxiously listened in, but her phone had excellent sound filtering. I couldn't hear anything. Just her saying, "Yes, yes, okay," before hanging up. "What did Mr. Vinh say?" I hurriedly asked when she hung up. "Mr. Vinh said someone will come to pick him up at the beginning of the afternoon. That's all." "Oh, then Mr. Vinh must have come up with a solution. You can go pick him up in the afternoon, or we can hire a motorcycle taxi for him since you're a girl, and I'm not confident in your driving skills." I worried about Ngok's safety on the road, so I suggested another way. "Okay, that works. You handle the motorcycle taxi, and I'll go home for breakfast. I can't stand being hungry." Poor thing hadn't eaten anything yet, and I dragged her over here. "But it serves you right. Who told you to be my best friend, huh?" I teased. After sorting out the motorcycle taxi, I turned back to cook rice just in time. At 1:10 p.m., the motorcycle taxi driver arrived, handed me a piece of paper with Mr. Vinh's address and phone number written on it, and then I advised him to take it slow since Mr. Vinh was old. I worried about his health. My mind was restless at home, running back and forth between Ngok's house and mine, to the point where I felt dizzy and irritable. "Can you just stay put, Nga? Seeing you like this makes me tired too." Fate. You should try experiencing what I've been through to see if you can stay calm. I only keep quiet because I care about you. But imagine if I were to speak up, would you still dare to stay at your house? Keeping such feelings inside is uncomfortable, but hang in there. Everything will soon be over. I encouraged myself like that, but truthfully, I wasn't sure if Mr. Vinh could handle them. "Oh, Ngok, you should tell your parents about this later, in case Mr. Vinh comes back unexpectedly." I remembered this needed to be told to my parents, so I reminded Ngok and was about to head home Mr. Vinh hasn't said so. Let's wait for him to arrive. Ngok stopped me with a dirty hand, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "Don't forget, we have guests at my house." Oh, that whisper sent shivers down my spine, but after a moment, I regained my composure, nodded to her, and remained silent. Indeed, I shouldn't speak out because it wasn't just us in the house. At 2:30, we heard the sound of a motorbike outside the gate. Knowing it was Mr. Vinh, both of us ran out to greet him. "Hello, sir. Are you tired from riding? Please come in for a drink." Ngok helped Mr. Vinh off the bike and warmly invited him inside. Mr. Vinh stepped off the bike with a warm smile, and after a quick glance around Ngok's house, he shook his head. "You shouldn't go in now. Let's go meet the village headman first. He's waiting for you at his house." The village headman's house was in the middle of the village, about 500 meters from our house. It was walkable, but since Mr. Vinh had just traveled a long distance, I suggested Ngok take him on a ride, while I ran home to borrow my dad's bike and followed them. "Mr. Kwon, do you have guests?" I called out from outside the gate. The village headman stood inside and peered out. It seemed he was also waiting for Mr. Vinh to arrive. "Is Nga and Ngok bringing Mr. Vinh here?" Mr. Kwon put on a long-sleeved shirt for formality and walked out to welcome the guests. "Hello, sir. Have you been waiting for long?" Mr. Vinh greeted Mr. Kwon warmly, starting a conversation. "I just got back home myself, and you arrived right on time. Please, come in for a drink, all three of you." Ngok and I followed quietly behind. Mr. Kwon poured drinks and then began to speak. The other day, when I talked with Mr. Vinh, I got a rough understanding of the situation. To be honest, I'm now the fourth village headman of this village. Before me, there were 3 others who also knew about the haunting, but didn't believe in such superstitions. They paid no mind to it. Now, I too have some beliefs. Witnessing these events firsthand, I don't think it's just a normal phenomenon as explained by scientists. I've been troubled by it for a long time and didn't know what to do. I sought help from various masters, hoping to resolve this disaster for the villagers. But after consulting over 10 masters, all of them shook their heads and left quietly. I'm at my wit's end. Thankfully, Nia and Ngok came to you for help. On behalf of the villagers, I ask for your assistance." Mr. Vinh clapped his hands together, smiled, and said, "You don't need to be so polite. I came here first for everyone's peace, and secondly, for fate. I'm not particularly talented, but I believe I can handle this matter. Now, please answer my questions truthfully, and that will suffice." Mr. Kwon clasped Mr. Vinh's hand earnestly. "If you can solve this problem for our villagers, I will be deeply grateful to you. Just ask me anything, and I'll tell you all I know." Mr. Vinh extended his thin, wrinkled hand to stroke his long beard and began to inquire. "Do you know about the incident involving the mother and child who died near the river at the entrance of Mr. Dung's house?" "I do. I know these 2 individuals died during the resistance against the French." Mr. Vinh nodded and continued to ask, "Do you know anything about the background of these 2 individuals?" "I'm not entirely sure because they passed away a long time ago." Mr. Kwon scratched his head, looking puzzled. He should have investigated this matter since it could be an important clue. "Can you recall if there are any elders in the village who might remember?" Mr. Vinh pressed on. Mr. Kwon furrowed his brows, pondered for a moment, then suddenly stood up. "Oh, right! I remember hearing from the elders that when they examined the bodies of the mother and child, they found a photo in the mother's pocket. The village headman kept that photo, and after he passed away, all the documents related to village affairs were stored in a box and passed down. When I took office, I was also handed a box. They said it contained old documents, but we had to keep it just in case. Wait a moment. Let me go find it. Sipping his tea, Mr. Vinh asked, "Are you too tired? If so, feel free to go back and rest." "We're not tired, sir. We're here to assist you in case you need anything," I quickly replied, though I was a bit fatigued from skipping my afternoon nap. But I had to stay to hear the story. Perhaps Mr. Vinh needed genuine help. A while later, Mr. Kwon emerged from the house holding an old, dusty wooden box that seemed untouched for ages. He gently wiped off the dust and placed it on the table, hesitating to open it forcefully for fear of damaging it. Inside the box were a pile of old documents, all written in faded ink, some legible, some not. "Here it is," Mr. Kwon said, handing a small piece of paper to Mr. Vinh, carefully wiping off the moldy residue on its surface. "Here, Mr. Vinh? Take a look. Is this the photo from the French era?" The drawn image, no larger than a palm, was so worn that one had to look closely to see the face depicted. It appeared to be a portrait of a young man, possibly not Vietnamese based on the facial features. Mr. Vinh turned it over to find a faded inscription. "It's a name," he remarked. I recognized that name, but because the letters were unclear, I didn't dare to confirm. After that statement, all 4 pairs of eyes turned towards me, except for Mr. Vinh's. He continued to gaze intently at the photo and the name, nodding as if understanding something. Then, he looked up at the village headman and spoke. "Could you accommodate me here for a few days?" Mr. Vinh asked. Of course. If you hadn't mentioned it, I was going to invite you to stay. Your house is far, and we're benefiting from your help. It's the least I can do. I've already prepared a place for you to stay. Please, bring your belongings here, and I'll keep them safe." Mr. Vinh thanked Mr. Kwon and continued, "This afternoon, please organize a meeting with the villagers to inform them about my arrival to dispel evil spirits. Also, instruct everyone not to leave their homes from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow. Even those who work far away should avoid this time frame. If anyone disobeys and something happens, they'll bear the consequences. I can't help in that case. Also, I need you to find 5 strong young men to bring them here before 1 p.m. tomorrow. Before inviting them, make sure to explain that I need their help with something. Only if they agree can they come." "Understood. I'll do my best. I'll leave now to get started," Mr. Kwon said, rising from his seat and heading out. Mr. Vinh remained seated, still staring at the photo. Sensing the stillness, I offered my help. "Sir, what about us? Can we assist you in any way?" Mr. Vinh put the photo in his pocket and looked at me and Ngoc with a stern expression. "You two should go rest now. I have some tasks to attend to. If you're free tomorrow morning, you can come here to help with some minor tasks. If not, wait for me at Ngoc's house gate at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Ngoc, you take this and make 2 circles to hang at the gate for me. You do it alone, and the other girl should go straight home. From now until 1 p.m. tomorrow, she's not allowed to come to your house. Do you understand? Do you still have the amulets I gave you?" "Yes, I still have mine with me," I replied. "Good. Now go home and be careful on the way." After bidding farewell, we left. I still didn't understand why Mr. Stitsmo Vinh didn't want me to assist Ngoc, and why he forbade me from going to her house. And what was the purpose of those red paper-wrapped sticks he gave us? As we walked away, Mr. Kwon's voice echoed through the village, announcing the urgent meeting scheduled for 4 p.m. this afternoon. People must have been delighted to hear the news, as they had been losing sleep over this issue for so long. With someone coming to help, they would surely express their gratitude. "Let's go home. I need to fulfill my mission," Ngoc said. As soon as we reached Ngoc's gate, she waved me away, reminding me of Mr. Vinh's instructions to go home. I didn't dare argue, so I headed home. Inside, I found my mother talking to my father. "I wonder what's so urgent that Mr. Kwan had to announce a meeting," my mother pondered. "It must be something important, Mom. This afternoon, either you or Dad will have to attend the meeting," I replied. My response surprised my mother, as I usually didn't pay attention to village meetings. But today, I insisted she attend, which was out of character for me. "Where did you just come from? And why do you insist we have to attend? Do you know something?" my mother asked. "No, I just feel that if Mr. Kwan announced it urgently, then there must be something important. We should go, Mom," I replied. "You're acting strange today, not like yourself," my mother teased. "Really? Not like myself? Could it be someone else then?" I teased back. After teasing my mother for a moment, I went to my room to take a nap to make up for the lack of sleep at noon. Mr. Kwan announced that a skilled master has been invited to expel evil spirits. I overheard someone say that this master, named Vinh, is from the neighboring district. I wonder if our village inviting so many masters before has accomplished anything. My mother's voice woke me up, realizing it was already 6 p.m. I panicked, realizing I hadn't cooked dinner yet. I quickly got up, preparing myself mentally for any scolding I might receive. I hurriedly put on my sandals and headed out. "Mom, you're back from the meeting." "I overslept and forgot to cook rice. Shall we have instant noodles tonight?" I announced as I rushed into the kitchen. My mother glanced at me with a slight frown. "I've already cooked, dear. If I let you cook, we'd probably end up having a late lunch tomorrow," she said teasingly. Well, at least I didn't get scolded too harshly. I thought to myself, maybe my mother knew I was writing a story and wanted to maintain a good image. Usually, if I got scolded, the whole neighborhood would hear about it. I scratched my head, pretending to feel guilty. "Sorry, Mom. I was so tired that I overslept. But since you've already cooked, I'll go ahead and set the table. You always understand me the best," I flattered, trying to smooth things over. As I set the table, my mother reminded everyone, "From 1 p.m. to tomorrow night, we'll stay home. If anyone has something to do, they should do it in the morning or reschedule for another day." My father and my older brother, not understanding what was happening, looked at my mother with wide eyes, as if their grandest dreams had been crushed by an immense force. As for me, I understood what my mother was referring to, but I played along to avoid suspicion. "Why is that, Mom? Does our family have something to do tomorrow afternoon?" I asked innocently. "Well, you see, dear, yesterday you mentioned that you're free tomorrow afternoon. Your brother was planning to take you shopping downtown in the afternoon," my mother explained. "I also have plans to visit a friend tomorrow afternoon. If you have something to do, Mom, you should do it in the morning or reschedule it for another day," I replied. Seeing me speak, my father and older brother quickly voiced their opinions. "If you're going shopping, then go with your sister tomorrow morning. Mom said we all have important matters to attend to tomorrow afternoon, not just for leisure. So whoever has something to do should do it in the morning. As for Nam, if he wants to visit his friend, he can go anytime," my father asserted. "Once Mom issues an order like that, who dares to argue?" my older brother remarked. Upon hearing my mother's final statement, my older brother's face darkened. He was probably planning to go out with his girlfriend, not just visit a friend. That settled the matter quickly, and I felt more reassured about the safety of our family. This morning, my parents went to the city early, and my older brother styled his hair in various ways, a clear indication that he was going out with his girlfriend. "Wherever you go, make sure you're back by noon." Mom reminded you yesterday. If you're not back on time, be careful because Mom will cut your meals for the whole month, I warned. I know, no need to remind me, my brother replied. Despite our constant bickering, my brother and I always stuck together when it came to important matters. After giving my brother his instructions, I planned to run to Ngok's house to invite her over to Mr. Kwan's house to see what was going on. But then I remembered Mr. Vinh's instructions. So I decided to call her instead and arranged to meet her at Mr. Kwan's house. It seemed she was also anxious because about 5 minutes later, we both arrived at Mr. Kwan's gate simultaneously. Mr. Kwan, Mr. Vinh, are you home? We called out. Ngok? Come in, Mr. Kwan replied. We parked our bikes neatly in a corner before stepping inside. Inside the house, sitting across from Mr. Kwan and Mr. Vinh, were 10 young men, presumably the ones Mr. Kwan had invited to help Mr. Vinh. At a glance, I recognized them all as villagers. After exchanging greetings, Ngok and I asked if we could sit at the back to make it easier for everyone to work. Mr. Vinh stood up and went into the room to fetch 10 small bags, handing one to each man and instructing them. You all know why I invited you here. From now until we finish, keep these bags with you at all times. Never take them off, even for a minute. They will provide absolute protection for you. This afternoon during the ritual, you will sit in a circle next to me. Remember, no matter what you see or hear, do not be afraid and leave the circle. If any of you lack confidence, you can withdraw from now. We're capable of doing this. We entrust our safety to you, the 10 young men unanimously agreed. Perhaps they were all like me, willing to contribute to restoring peace and tranquility to everyone's lives. Mr. Vinh nodded in satisfaction before pricking his index finger to draw blood. He then dropped a drop of his blood into each bag and muttered some incantation. After finishing, Mr. Vinh turned to look at the clock and walked toward where the two of us were sitting. These two have been followed since the day they went to find me, but I've given them an amulet to temporarily shield them from it. Nga, does it seem like you're the one who's teased the most? Mr. Vinh asked, surprising me because I hadn't disclosed anything to Mr. Vinh before. Yes, sir. How did you know? I replied. I'll explain when we catch it. Now it's 10:30 here, and there's nothing for you two to help with. You should go home and rest. Ngok, remember to pay attention and go to the spot where you placed the circle at noon. Remove the amulet leaf and toss it into the circle. As for Nga, keep the amulet leaf with you. If it's past 1:05, go to Ngok's gate to meet me. I didn't understand what Mr. Vinh was doing or what he would do, and I don't think anyone else did either. But we all just nodded and followed his instructions. When I got home, both my parents had returned. We went to the kitchen together to prepare lunch for the family. I decided to tell my mother the truth that I was the one who invited Mr. Vinh and that I would participate in the ritual this afternoon. I knew if I didn't tell her, I'd definitely be held back at home this afternoon. Mom, please don't scold me for what I'm about to say, I began. What are you going to say? Did you do something wrong again without even doing it yet? My mom replied. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I have to try. My mom looked startled by my words. I had never kept any secrets from her before, so she was a bit worried. Try? What are you trying to say? Seeing my mom alarmed like that, I had to get to the point and dispel her thoughts, or she might think I was going to try drugs or something. No, it's not what you're thinking. I just want to be honest with you that Mr. Vinh coming back to exercise for our village was because Ngok and I went to invite him. He's a distant relative of Ngok's, and he's famous for exorcising ghosts in the neighboring district. Our village should also hope for the success of this trip. Upon hearing my explanation, my mom let out a sigh of relief. So it's because of you two. Well, then let's hope he can help our village. Yesterday at the meeting, Mr. Kwan announced that during the ritual at Uncle Dung's gate, everyone must stay indoors, so you should stay home this afternoon. Knowing my mom, I knew she would say that. I'm telling you this because both Ngok and I have to be there this afternoon, but Mr. Vinh has prepared everything thoroughly, so you can rest assured. I'll be fine, I explained. No, I don't agree. Spiritual matters cannot be foreseen. I absolutely forbid you from getting involved in these things, my mom insisted. Mom, please let me go, because Ngok and I are involved in this. I have to be there. Do you remember the times I was teased by ghosts at Ngok's house? Mr. Vinh noticed it even though I never told him, and he gave me this amulet. I said, showing the amulet to my mom to reassure her. Although my family doesn't follow Christianity or Buddhism, as business people, my parents often go to temples and participate in religious activities. After convincing my mom throughout lunch, she finally agreed to let me go on one condition: she would accompany me. So, I had to call Mr. Vinh to ask for permission again, but luckily there were no issues, and Mr. Vinh agreed to my mom joining. At 1:05 p.m., my mom and I went to Ngok's house. When we arrived, everyone was present. Mr. Vinh was arranging the ritual. In front of the gate, he had placed a table with peculiar items: a yellow cloth with the 8 trigrams printed on it, a bronze incense burner with 3 incense sticks, and 2 small red flags that seemed to be dyed by something other than normal dye. Mr. Vinh and the 10 young men were arranging candles in a large circle. After finishing, Mr. Vinh sprinkled white powder outside the circle of candles, tied a red string to the table leg, and let the string dangle into the nearby river. When my mom and I arrived, Mr. Vinh waved his hand for us to stand inside the circle he had prepared. Inside, Ngok and the village chief, Mr. Kwan, were waiting. You and your mother stay here. Ninga, give Mr. Vinh the amulet you're wearing, Mr. Vinh instructed. Mr. Vinh handed the amulet to Ngok, telling her to put it in the remaining circle at the gate. Then, he turned to my mom and handed her a small bag. Hold on to this bag tightly, he instructed. The bag Mr. Vinh gave my mom looked similar to the 10 small bags he gave the young men earlier. I noticed Mr. Kwan also had a bag like that. Only Ngok and I didn't have one. I didn't understand, but seeing Mr. Vinh busy, I suppressed my curiosity. All right, now Mr. Kwan and your mother sit down. Nya and Ngok sit behind me, and the 10 young men sit in a circle around us. Remember to follow my instructions. Whoever has the scented bag I gave out must be careful. There may be external impacts or hallucinations later, but no matter what, do not leave this circle. If you step out of the circle, you'll bear the consequences. I'm just reminding you. Everyone is responsible for protecting each other's safety, Mr. Vinh emphasized. After giving instructions to everyone, Mr. Vinh used a needle to prick his index finger, causing it to bleed. He then proceeded to make a series of precise movements, imprinting the blood onto the forehead of both Ngok and me, forming a red circle between our eyebrows. Now, everyone sit down with your legs crossed and place your hands on your thighs. Close your eyes tightly. Closing your eyes will bring peace of mind, and a peaceful mind guarantees safety. I invited these 10 young men here because the yang energy of healthy young men is strong enough to overpower any negative energy. Therefore, you are like a protective circle for all of us, including yourselves. If you break this circle, everyone will be in danger, including me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mr. Vinh asked. Yes, Master. "We will do our best," the young men replied unanimously, displaying their unwavering trust in Mr. Vinh. I knew that if I didn't close my eyes, I might see things that others couldn't. Yet, what's scarier than being teased whenever I visit Ngok's house? I had become braver and less afraid, so I decided to open my eyes slightly to observe. Mr. Vinh stood up and lit 3 sticks of incense, chanting, "I summon the soul of Ding Thi Thien, born on March 12, 1926, in the Bindun year, died on June 23, 1945, in the Utdo year, from Yin Kuang, Yen Nam Din. Come forth." Who is that? I pondered, unable to recall any data about this name. Mr. Vinh had never mentioned it before. Who was this person, and why was Mr. Vinh summoning her? Mr. Vinh walked around the 10 young men, murmuring non-Vietnamese words, then paused to recite the name and dates of birth and death of a woman named Tin. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew, causing the candles to flicker, but they didn't extinguish. They only swayed and then flickered brightly again. Before Mr. Vinh stood the figure of a woman, levitating in the air. Her long hair touched the ground, her face pale, with deep eye sockets, but no eyes. It was her, the woman I had encountered in a nightmare 3 years ago. I recognized her by her appearance and the clothes she was wearing. She and another child had appeared in my dream. Yes, it must be her. I couldn't be mistaken. He, her eerie laughter echoed, accompanied by a strong wind that made the surrounding trees sway as if they were about to uproot. However, there were no signs of wind within the circle. Feeling safe, I could sit back and observe everything, including the sinister soul of the woman. She must no longer be a regular spirit, given the power she possessed, the power of a demon. "Dare you call my name?" He. From above, the demon swooped down as if to plunge straight into our midst, its eyes filled with rage as it darted like an arrow without hesitation. Just as it was about a meter away from us, a sudden flash of light accompanied by a loud explosion sent the demon flying far away. That was the power of the circle Mr. Vinh had created. "Do you think you can break my barrier?" Mr. Vinh furrowed his brow, shouting loudly. He, an old, feeble sorcerer with a few ordinary folks, dares to set up a trap for me? He, do you know how long I've been here? That girl, you, I really like you. He. The demon pointed towards me and Ngok, or rather, it was pointing at me. Why me? Fear began to grip me, sweat drenching my body, my mouth chanting Buddhist prayers involuntarily. Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha. My tongue stiff, struggling to form coherent words. Mr. Vinh drew 2 small swords from his waist and brandished them before the flames, then pointed them straight at the demonic apparition, shouting with a stern voice, "You are nothing but a wild, malevolent spirit without a proper resting place, yet you dare disrupt the lives of mortals. You do not know your place. Quickly submit, or I will help both of you achieve liberation, either willingly or forcefully." Today, all your souls will belong to me. The demon laughed without a hint of fear, its laughter emanating from its wide, blackened mouth. I understood why Mr. Vinh had instructed everyone not to open their eyes. The sight I was witnessing was probably beyond imagination, truly horrifying, capable of causing anyone's heart to fail if they saw it. Yet, perhaps due to my familiarity with being harassed, I was able to endure, albeit with fear. I glanced at my mother, Ngok, and everyone else around. They were all drenched in sweat, trembling, except for Mr. Kwan, who seemed particularly unwell. His face drained of color, he muttered in fear. No. It seemed that Mr. Vinh heard him. He glanced back, then quickly refocused, tracing intricate patterns with his swords in the air. The demon continued its eerie laughter, pointing towards Mr. Kwon, its mouth muttering. Mr. Kwon began to exhibit strange behavior, his eyes vacant, his arms hanging limply as he moved out of the circle. Sensing the urgency, Mr. Vinh shouted loudly, "Andrew Martin! I summon the spirit of Andrew Martin! Someone needs to see you! Andrew Martin, appear!" As soon as Mr. Vinh's summons ended, the red thread hanging down into the river began to tremble, rising from the riverbed along its path. The figure of a man gradually materialized, a French soldier still in uniform, standing before Mr. Vinh. But he did not speak, only standing there with empty, melancholic eyes. It seemed that this soul had been controlled by Mr. Vinh. Why? Why did you do that? Witnessing Mr. Vinh summon the soul of the French soldier, the demon panicked, ceasing all actions to focus on the soul of the man under Mr. Vinh's control. Mr. Vinh continued to call out, "I summon the offspring of the spirit of Ding Thi Thin, the essence of the soul of Andrew Martin. Quickly appear and witness." As Mr. Vinh finished his words, a white smoke emerged from the ground, coalescing into the form of a young boy, his face and clothes dirty and tattered. Mr. Vinh looked at the child and smiled kindly. "I will buy you beautiful clothes and ask for permission for you to go to the temple to follow the Buddha's teachings. You'll have plenty to eat and warm clothes. Will you agree?" The child jumped with joy, then laughed happily, running around the circle and occasionally casting a wary glance at the woman as if afraid she would swallow him whole. Seeing the child, I was horrified to realize that he was the same boy who appeared with this woman in that dream years ago. So my speculations were entirely correct. But what about Tome? Was he also taken by these two? If so, why? Why would they take him? Don't think you can subdue me by doing that. My train of thought was interrupted by the eerie voice of the demon, who seemed angry at Mr. Vinh's actions. Dark smoke emanated from it like a protective layer. The demon flew up high and then dove straight into the circle, aiming to break Mr. Vinh's barrier. Not allowing her to execute her plan, Mr. Vinh continued to shout, "Your family harbors resentment for being humiliated by a man named Andrew. In a fit of desperation, you tore his shirt and found this picture. When you discovered you were carrying his child, you frantically searched but found no results. On the morning of June 22, 1945, you received news that Andrew had died here and brought your pregnant belly here. But on the night of June 23, 1945, you went into labor. In the dead of night, with no one to help, you crawled into a boat by the river and both you and your child suffocated there. Is that correct?" Mr. Vinh held up the drawing that Mr. Kwon had found and handed it to the demon, causing it to pause, its face showing a mixture of despair and trembling voice. How do you have that picture? Why do you know my story? No, I cannot forgive. I must seek revenge. I hate all you mortals. I will not go anywhere. I will not leave. Only here can I protect myself and my son. Ha, ha, ha. All of you must die. Must die." The demon screamed in chaos, the black smoke surrounding it thickening. Dark clouds rolled in, and in the blink of an eye, the sky darkened. Continuous gusts of wind arose. Mr. Vinh's barrier had weakened slightly as I could feel the demon's power through the gusts it created. 1/3 of the candles around us had been extinguished, leaving only the 10 young men with hopes of their yang energy protecting us. Mr. Vinh was sweating profusely, his lips turning pale. I knew he was trying very hard. If this spell failed, then surely, as the demon said, we would all die. Mr. Vinh crossed his legs, sitting down, holding a rosary in his hand, tapping his mouth, chanting words that I couldn't understand. a scream came from the soul of the man, as if he were moving. Indeed, he was moving towards the child, taking his hand and kneeling before the demon. The soul of the man was so faint that even a gentle breeze could dissipate its figure. "I'm sorry, my child. I'm sorry. I've been here waiting for you and your mother. I wanted to stand before you once to apologize. If you and your child can forgive me, our family will follow you. If we can't live together in this world, then now we can be together in death. The teacher promised to take us away. Please forgive me. Please follow me. Let's live as a family as I once hoped." "Are your words true? Do you really want to take me and my child away together?" The demon paused, tears welling in its eyes as it looked at the man and the child kneeling before it. It spoke, and the black smoke around it gradually dissipated, revealing the woman's figure. She was petite, her face reflecting both shame and hope. Perhaps she was also here to hear the words of this man. "My words are true. I have wronged you and your child. Please give me a chance to redeem my mistakes." The man's soul slowly stood up, reaching out as if waiting for someone to step towards him. At the same moment, there was a loud bang, and the candles went out. The 10 young men sitting around wavered. Mr. Vinh's barrier was broken, and everyone looked in fear as they saw the 3 souls in front of them. But now, those 3 souls no longer seemed as terrifying as before. They looked like wisps of smoke resembling human figures hovering in the air. Mr. Vinh stood up, holding the rosary, and approached the 3 souls. The woman stepped back as Mr. Vinh advanced, emitting a black smoke from her, enveloping the 2 souls, the French soldier and her son. "Namo Amitabha Buddha, I mean no harm to you. I only want to advise you to return to where you belong. This world does not belong to the deceased. I promise to take you away, and I will request for the child to be sheltered under Buddha's grace. Do you wish to take him with you or let him enjoy blessings at the feet of Buddha? I have accumulated great karma and stayed in the mortal realm for too long. Returning now will bring consequences. I do not want my son to suffer with me. Please, take him and help him attain liberation. We will never forget your kindness." The woman lowered her head in earnest supplication. Mr. Vinh nodded in agreement, ready to continue. "There is one more thing. Whoever among you is holding the souls of Miss Hoa, Miss Yin, and the child named Tome, please release them so they can return." "It's me, Master," echoed the woman's voice. "But I only hold the souls of Yin and Tome. As for the soul of Hoa, I haven't kept it. It has followed another soul." "Why did you detain these 2 individuals?" Mr. Vinh inquired. "It's because they owed me in their past lives," the woman's soul replied, emitting a black smoke around her, her eyes flashing red with anger. Her father and his grandfather witnessed her being assaulted, but chose to turn a blind eye, leaving her to suffer alone despite her desperate pleas for help. They, fellow human beings, ignored her cries for help while enduring the same suffering under oppression. I had to ensure that their descendants paid the price and obeyed my will. Even now, you refuse to forgive them, to let go of everything and depart?" Mr. Vinh maintained his composed demeanor, questioning sternly. "No, that was in the past. Now, I have experienced enough loneliness and solitude in the mortal realm. I have found myself again and received an apology from Andrew. You were right, the mortal realm is not for us. Please, take us away," the woman pleaded. "In that case, release their souls so I can pray for them." The woman approached Mr. Vinh, slowly opening her mouth wide. From within her mouth, 2 white streams of smoke emerged, gradually condensing into 2 faint figures. I recognized them as Ms. Yin and Tome, both kneeling under Mr. Vinh's feet, bowing their heads in gratitude. "Thank you for rescuing us, Master. Please lead us to salvation so we can find peace," they implored. Holding the photograph of the French soldier, Mr. Vinh lit it on fire and let the ashes fall into the river. "I return this photo to you. Please return to where you belong," he said before taking out a small jar used for soul binding. Placing the jar containing the child's soul on the table, he then brought a bowl of water before the four souls. He sprinkled the water around them and chanted, causing the four ethereal figures to turn toward us, bowing in farewell before gradually disappearing. I caught a glimpse of Tom's smile, a joyful expression. "Rest in peace, dear boy. I will pray for you," he said. With that, everything concluded. There would be no more days of fear, no more terrifying images or nightmares. Mr. Vinh let out a long sigh, wiping the sweat from his brow. He sprayed a faintly pink-scented water from a small bottle onto each person, gradually waking them up. My mother rushed over, alarmed, to check if I was okay, and of course, I was fine, just a bit tired. She had seen those spirits, and I understood her concern. Everyone packed up, and Mr. Vinh handed the jar containing the child's soul to Mr. Kwon, instructing him, "Take this jar to the temple and ask the monk to perform a ceremony for it. Name the child and request that it be taken under the Buddha's care. Through daily recitations, its soul will find peace sooner." Taking the trembling hands that accepted the jar, Mr. Kwon's face still pale, Mr. Vinh approached me, patting my shoulder and smiling. "This little one has been through a lot, and it fits perfectly with those two. They've been with each other until now, almost taken away by them. But thanks to their ancestors, who came to seek my help and guided them here. After this, let's organize a big ceremony to thank our ancestors." So that's how it was. No wonder Mr. Vinh knew everything and even gave me an amulet. But why did Mr. Vinh know the name and background of that woman, and even the fact that she was assaulted? I was very curious, so I leaned in and whispered to Mr. Vinh, "Sir, I really want to know how you knew the name and background of that woman." Mr. Vinh chuckled softly, stroking his silver beard. "I also have a spiritual connection. Just like you, my child," he said cryptically. With that cryptic remark, I understood why Mr. Vinh could do what he did, and I also knew the role of the wild bushes he planted in front of his house. Everyone has secrets, and we should respect them, but that doesn't mean letting those secrets remain buried forever. The secrets about Mr. Vinh's life would be unearthed eventually. The end?